finale of Cobra Kai. And let me tell you the Screen Rant review we're looking at. They're claiming this ending is nearly perfect. Nearly perfect. That's a bold statement. So we are here to unpack that review and see if it lives up to the hype. What do you think makes a finale truly satisfying? Hold on to that thought as we break this down.
What's interesting is that this isn't just any season finale. We're talking about the culmination of 6 seasons, a revival of a classic franchise that took on a life of its own. Talk about pressure.
No kidding. And right off the bat, the reviewer highlights how Season 6 is structured in 3 distinct parts. Part 1 sets up all the challenges. Part 2 throws us into that epic Sekai Taikai tournament. And then Part 3, which is our main focus today, brings it all home, wrapping up those character arcs.
You know, that 3-part structure is something you see in other shows that really want to nail the landing, like Breaking Bad or even Game of Thrones. I wonder if Cobra Kai pulled it off as well as those shows did. What do you think?
Well, the reviewer seems to think so, especially when it comes to Part 3. They actually say it brings back some of that classic Karate Kid humor and fun, but without sacrificing the more serious, mature themes the show has explored in later seasons. I've got to say that makes me excited to revisit those episodes. It's like the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, it's a tricky balance to strike. I mean, how do you stay true to the heart of the original while still acknowledging the growth and changes the characters have gone through over 6 seasons? It sounds like they managed to pull it off. But I'm curious to hear if it felt authentic to you.
So let's get to the heart of it. Did Cobra Kai stick the landing? Did it deliver a satisfying conclusion after all this time? The reviewer gives a resounding yes-s, praising how each core character gets a proper send-off. But here's the thing, satisfying can be subjective. What does that even mean to you? When you think back on other shows you've loved, what makes an ending truly satisfying?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? For me, it's not necessarily about everyone getting a happy ending, though that's always nice. It's more about a sense of closure. Have those character arcs reached a natural point of resolution? Do we understand why things ended the way they did? Did the journey feel meaningful?
That makes sense, and it sounds like the reviewer felt that way about Cobra Kai, especially with how they talk about the heroes soaring while the villains fall. I love that imagery. It really gets to the core of those classic themes of good versus evil, right? Did that resonate with you? What are your thoughts on that dynamic, especially in the context of this final season?
It's a classic trope for a reason. We're wired to root for the underdog, to see justice prevail. But Cobra Kai takes it a step further, doesn't it? It's not just about black and white heroes and villains. We've seen characters switch sides, grapple with their inner demons, and ultimately choose their path. So when the finale delivers on that hero soar, villains fall dynamic, it feels earned. It speaks to the consequences of our choices, but also the potential for redemption.
Absolutely, and let's not forget those powerful themes woven throughout the series. Identity, belonging, resilience, perseverance. Did these themes hit home for you, especially in those final episodes? Did they feel authentic to the characters and their journeys?
I think they did. The reviewer specifically calls out these themes, which suggests they weren't just sprinkled in as an afterthought. They're baked into the DNA of the show. Informing those character arcs from beginning to end, we see how those struggles with identity, with finding your place, with pushing through adversity, it all culminates in those final moments.
Now the reviewer calls the ending nearly perfect, which makes me wonder, what would make it absolutely perfect? Is there even such a thing? What would have blown you away? What were your expectations going into this finale?
The elusive perfect ending. It's a subjective thing for sure. What resonates with one viewer might leave another cold. But generally speaking, I think a perfect ending leaves no loose ends, ties up every character arc in a satisfying way. But still leaves you wanting more, like you close the book, but the story lingers in your mind.
You know what? That's a great point. But even with a nearly perfect ending, there might have been a few stumbles along the way. The review mentioned that some of the characters introduced later in the series might have gotten shortchanged in those final 5 episodes, probably due to limited runtime. Did that stand out to you? Were there any characters you felt deserved more closure?
It's understandable that with limited time, some characters might not get the same amount of closure as others. It's a constant balancing act, especially with a large ensemble cast, I guess it comes down to. Which storylines feel most crucial to the overall narrative, and which ones can be left slightly less resolved. It's all about creative choices, isn't it? Striking that balance between giving fans what they want and staying true to the core story.
That makes total sense. It's got to be a tough call for those writers, but hey, maybe it leaves room for spin-offs down the line. Okay, back to the review. One thing they emphasize is how well the finale pays tribute to the original Karate Kid films, while also setting the stage for what's next for these characters. That's a neat trick. What are your thoughts on that balancing act between nostalgia and forging ahead into new territory? Did it work for you?
It's a testament to the show's understanding of its roots, you know? They're not afraid to tap into that nostalgia to give us those little winks and nods to the original Karate Kid. But at the same time, they've built something new, something that stands on its own 2 feet. That's a tough balance to achieve, but when it works, it's magic.
It really is, and isn't that what makes a show like this so successful? It's not just a reboot or a rehash, it's a continuation, an evolution. It takes what we loved about the original and breathes new life into it. I bet that's a recipe for some serious fan satisfaction, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a clever approach to storytelling, appealing to our sentimental side, while also giving us something fresh and exciting. It's like revisiting a beloved childhood home that's been beautifully renovated. You recognize the familiar structure and cherish the memories it holds. But you're also delighted by the modern updates and the potential for new experiences.
What a great analogy. Yeah, this whole conversation has me itching to go back and rewatch those final episodes. I need to see those satisfying conclusions for myself. But before we get carried away with our own nostalgia, let's circle back to the Screen Rant review for a moment. They made one comment that really intrigued me. They said the ending, while nearly perfect, felt like it was missing something. Now, they didn't elaborate on what that something might be, but it got me thinking. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about the Cobra Kai finale, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's like asking a chef to tweak a recipe that's already a crowd pleaser. But if I had to pick something, maybe I'd explore some of those later introduced characters a bit more. You know, the reviewer mentioned they felt a tad neglected, and while I understand the time constraints, I think there's always room for deeper dives into character development. Maybe a few more scenes that really delve into their motivations, their backstories, their relationships with the core cast. What do you think? Would that have enhanced the finale for you?
Oh, absolutely. It's like adding those extra spices to an already delicious dish just to bring out even more nuanced flavors. And it makes you wonder, did those characters feel fully realized to you, or were there any lingering questions you had about their arcs?
I think there's always room for more exploration, more depth, especially when you have such a rich ensemble cast. But I also appreciate the restraint shown by the writers. Sometimes leaving a little mystery, little room for interpretation, can be just as satisfying as tying up every loose end. It invites the audience to participate in the storytelling process, to fill in the blanks with their own imagination.
That's a great point. Sometimes less is more, right? It allows the story to breathe and leave space for the audience to connect with the characters on a more personal level. Speaking of connections, I was particularly impressed with how the finale managed to honor the legacy of the original Karate Kid films. While still charting a new course for these characters, I mean, it's no easy feat to pay homage to a beloved classic, while also creating something original and engaging. What did you think of that delicate balance?
I think they nailed it. They managed to capture that same spirit of heart humor and martial arts action. That made the original Karate Kid such a cultural phenomenon. But they also weren't afraid to update the themes to explore more complex characters and relationships, and to address contemporary issues in a way that felt authentic and relevant. It's a testament to the show's creators that they were able to breathe new life into this franchise while still respecting its legacy.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You know, thinking back on the entire series, it's amazing to see how much ground Cobra Kai covered. It tackled themes of redemption, forgiveness, second chances, and the cyclical nature of violence. Did any of those themes particularly resonate with you? Was there a moment or a storyline that really hit home?
Yeah, I was struck by the exploration of mentorship and the impact it could have on young lives. We saw how different sensei, with their varying philosophies and approaches to karate, shaped the destinies of their students. Some mentors, like Johnny Lawrence, evolved and learned from their past mistakes, becoming positive influences on a new generation. Others, like Terry Silver, remained trapped in their own toxic patterns, ultimately leading to their downfall. It's a reminder that the lessons we learn from our mentors, both good and bad, can shape us profoundly.
That's such a powerful insight. It really speaks to the complexity of these characters and the enduring impact of mentorship. And you know, that theme of cyclical violence really resonated with me. How the choices we make, especially those rooted in anger and resentment, can have ripple effects across generations. Did that aspect of the story stay with you as well?
Absolutely. The book cleverly illustrated how past traumas and unresolved conflicts can continue to haunt us, influencing our behavior and relationships. But it also offered a glimmer of hope, suggesting that it's possible to break free from those cycles through self-awareness, empathy, and a willingness to forgive.
Well said, and I think that's a great segue into our final thoughts on this deep dive. We've explored the highs and lows of Cobra Kai's finale, bisected the Screen Rant review, and even pondered what we might change if we had the power. But now it's time to turn the conversation over to you, our listeners. Did the finale hit the mark for you? Did it live up to your expectations? Was it the ending you envisioned?
We're eager to hear your thoughts. Did you find the resolution of certain character arcs satisfying? Were there any storylines you wish had been explored further? What resonated with you most deeply?
And here's a final thought-provoking question for you to ponder. If you were at the helm of the Cobra Kai writer's room, what direction would you take the story next? Would you explore a new generation of karate students, revisit some of the original characters years down the line, or perhaps venture into uncharted territory altogether, let your imagination run wild, we're all ears?
It's fascinating to imagine the endless possibilities that lie ahead. After all, the spirit of Cobra Kai, with its themes of resilience, second chances, and the enduring power of human connection, is something that can continue to inspire and entertain for years to come.
So true. And with that, we're officially wrapping up this deep dive into the world of Cobra Kai. A huge thank you to Screen Rant for their insightful review, and an even bigger thank you to you, our amazing listeners, for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure exploring the intricacies of this series with you.
Until next time, deep divers, keep those brains engaged and those questions coming. And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. We encourage you to share your thoughts on the Cobra Kai finale, or any other deep dives you'd like us to take on. We're always ready to plunge into a new topic. We love hearing your perspectives, so don't be shy. Share your hot takes, your burning questions, those haha moments you had while watching. Did this finale leave you feeling satisfied? Or were there some missed opportunities you would have explored?
And hey, even if you haven't finished the series yet, we'd still love to hear what you think makes for a truly epic finale. What are those elements that keep you on the edge of your seat? What leaves you feeling like you've been on a roller coaster of emotions? Let's keep this conversation going.
You know, thinking back on it, Cobra Kai really did a phenomenal job of balancing those nostalgic callbacks with fresh storytelling. It's like they knew exactly how to tap into our love for the original, while still carving out its own unique legacy. Did any of those Karate Kid nods stand out to you? I'm thinking about that final scene, pure magic.
Absolutely, I think they struck a perfect chord, especially in those final moments. For those of us who grew up with a Karate Kid, it felt like a beautiful full circle moment, a recognition of how far these characters have come, while still honoring the roots of the story.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, folks, it looks like we've reached the end of our deep dive. But remember, the learning never stops. We encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those deep dives going in your own lives.
Whether you're revisiting a beloved classic or discovering something entirely new, there's always something to be learned, something to be inspired by.
So until next time, deep divers, keep those brains engaged and stay curious. And don't forget to let us know what other topics you'd like us to tackle. We're always ready for a new adventure. 32i